Good morning, friends. Welcome to Coffee Talk, where we're standing in a kitchen without coffee. My goodness. What are we doing?
It is over the shoulder. Do we need to move so that people can see the coffee maker? Way
there's
back
coffee back there.
Get coffee somewhere.
But we've had coffee today, but we wanted to invite you into this time just to hang out with us and to do some reflecting and to look forward and look back. And we begin our time by looking back to what we talked about this last Sunday. Just an amazing opportunity to work through this series called Virtues of the Kingdom. And we're working through it. We're coming close to a close, but just some amazing things that we're being reminded of in so many different ways. And we've talked about compassion. We've talked about all kinds of things. And this last Sunday, Jeff led us through generosity. And so we just want to reflect on that for a few minutes. Jeff began with talking about we have a generous God, which always, how appropriate, reminds me about Christmas. Because the thing growing up was, okay, why do we give gifts? That makes no sense. Like the people around, yes, the wise men brought gifts, but they didn't give it to each other. It was for Christ himself. But what was always told to me was, because God is the great giver of gifts, we give gifts to one another.
And Jesus is the greatest gift
Jesus
of all.
is the greatest gift.
Yeah.
So, we have a generous God. That's kind of the basis of this. But then Jeff took us to another passage in the 2 Corinthians, and it was a very interesting passage about an example of generosity and financially based, which was interesting.
Yeah, I think that's been part of the interesting for me. Part of this series is that we chat with Jeff ahead of time. We know kind of what the topics are going to be. He's laid it all out for us, but not necessarily the passages.
Right.
And so it's okay, there's a dozen or more different, not just verses, but sections, passages, stories where he could have gone to, lead us in a conversation about generosity based on God being generous. And he chose this letter from Paul.
This is a total rabbit trail. But I actually thought he was going to go to the feeding of 5,000. Because the first thing that Christ said to his disciples was, oh, there's hungry people? You feed them.
Right. And they went, we can't. Who's got the cash? Which, I think we've all been in that disciple's shoes where we're presented with an opportunity to be generous, right? And we look at it and go, it's beyond our means. And then somebody else comes along and it's hey, let's work together to make this work. And I've got a bit, you've got a bit. In that case, obviously, the boy brought his whole lunch and the disciples were great, we can hand it out. It's where's the sureness? But whatever. Small lunch.
Yeah.
Plus Jesus feeds. Anyways.
Total rabbit trail. That's not where Jeff went. But I think that's an interesting one about generosity, because I think Jesus was maybe challenging their sense of well, do you have compassion on these people?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He could have just as easily taken whatever was in their pocket and spread that around too.
Yeah.
I thought maybe the widows might, where they're in the temple and there's the box there where people are giving and they're bringing offerings and stuff, and she, is highlighted by Jesus because she puts in the one coin and they're what good is that going to do?
Yeah.
And he highlights that it's, she gave out of her lack, out of her poverty, but it was a huge gift from her, and he highlights her generosity in that.
Because it's known in that cultural context that this widow was probably very poor.
Extremely.
Right? And Jesus probably knew that she was very poor, and yet she still had that small bit to put in.
Yeah.
Whereas many others around her who were extremely well off gave and gave and gave and gave, and even hey, maybe I'll, if I have, this much dill growth, why don't I take 10% of that and I'll put it, right?
Right.
And they're doing all the right things and being quote unquote generous, and yet Christ is saying she gave because she actually had nothing. She gave more.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part about all of this as well too. The whole point of generosity is still not about the amount.
No.
And that's, I think, what's sometimes hard for us to get our mind around, because Jeff gave a few examples of how he maybe feels like inadequate in some of the ways that or challenged, maybe not inadequate, but challenged in some of the ways that we can give and we can be generous. And I think that's good for us all to be thinking about. I would also say too that, I've seen Jeff be very generous in other ways as well too. So it's maybe,
Yep.
sometimes we self-evaluate, but what I thought was really interesting about this passage is it's not just about the amount. And
Right.
I think that's kind of the important part, because as we look at that passage, like it says, you think about this other church in the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and extreme poverty welled up as rich generosity. And like they were very challenged and under duress and didn't have that much to give, and yet they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing this service to the Lord's people. And so this church that had issues and trials and were probably being persecuted at the time, didn't have very much, but said, you know what, it actually is, it's a joy, and actually we would ask and we would beg that you allow us to give in this way. And like that's kind of mind-boggling too, because quite often for other people it's the other way around, right? Like we are facing this issue and this trial, we really have nothing, we need people to give to us. And yet in that sense of in that difficult situation, they actually turned that around and said, we really need to be able to give to others right now, like that.
Yeah. And it would have been, I think, really easy for that church that Paul's mentioning to look at the church in Jerusalem and go, what's their issue, right?
Yeah.
And because I think sometimes we struggle with generosity. I think it's a general human condition. We consider an opportunity to be generous, and then we start evaluating and judging the worthiness.
Yeah.
And I think what we're called to as followers of Jesus, right? And I think generosity is one of those things where with all of these are virtues of God's own nature. And if we're becoming like Christ, the Spirit will develop them in us as we, become more like Him. So in one sense, we could just say, well, great, we just got to wait the time. Okay. But no, these are almost muscles that we got to work on.
Yeah. And
we got to build and we got to grow. And so, but as we were talking earlier, like before we hit the button, I think the focus is really like not just on the act of generosity, but on the evaluation of self. Like, am I putting myself above others? Because that's when we really start asking about, is this person worthy? Is this organization worthy? Is this situation worthy of my generosity? Whether that's time, whether that's money, whether that's any other kind of resource that we might be able to allocate. Even just the energy of, because sometimes it's like, oh, the person wants to spend time and have a conversation so that they can, bounce some ideas off, whatever. There's all sorts of opportunities we have to be generous. Yep. And the question is, am I thinking I'm better than that person or that thing? And or am I thinking that they're not worthy? Well, then that's a problem that's going to keep us from generosity.
Yeah.
But if we're just like, oh man, focused on God and all that He's given us and thankful every day for Him and thankful for all the time that we have and we see it as all coming out of a place of plenty, then I think it flows more naturally towards generosity. What Paul's bringing up is, here's this church. They weren't focused on how little they have. They were focused on the privilege before them of giving and helping.
Yeah.
And the beautiful opportunity that is. And they weren't judging worthiness, they just gave. And that's, I think, that's why they stand as a great example.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that they had this example, but the fact that Paul is also just saying, I'm throwing this out there to actually challenge you, Church of Corinth. Here's an example, and I'm just using it as an example, but what I actually also see in you, and he says this a little bit later in that chapter 8, listen, I'm seeing faith, and I'm seeing grace, and I'm seeing wisdom and knowledge, and all of these things happening, but I'm going to challenge your sense of generosity as well too, because in all of these things, it's part and parcel of following Christ. It's seeing others with that sense of humility to say, you know, I was saved because of the generosity of Christ reaching out to me. Therefore, I can see others in that same light. You know, like freely you have received, freely give. Go in my name, and because you believe, others will know that I live. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Little ditty from the past, but you know how much it is that like we need to still remember the grace that was given to us, so that we can extend that to others. And like you said, like it has very little to do with that sense of evaluation of, is that person worthy, right? Should my gift go to them? I often, not often, a couple of times recently, we've been talking as a family about, you know, like, okay, if every single day of my life was like a penny, you know, those things that we never use, like if my hands are full of pennies, and every day I spend one, and then, you know, eventually all my pennies are gone, and if every day is like a penny, you know, and I pick that up and I think about it and say, okay, this person isn't worthy of me spending time on them, or this person isn't worthy of me spending my resources, whether it's money or whatever. That's an odd, selfish choice when I have a handful of things and God is calling us to take that penny and just say, you know what, you've been given this by me, you know, use it well and use it wisely and use it in my name, right? And I've been challenged by that to say, you know, especially even my time, like, I'll confess, one of the harder things to do, because our kids are older and they're just doing their own thing, we're still in the whole child rearing zone. So even like bedtime routine, you know, Dad, can you come sit with me, read a story, you know, do a book? Sometimes that's challenging because I'm like, I got this list of things I want to get done, and it's saying, can you be generous with your time? And that's been a challenge for me. So Jeff said his, you know, challenge is this. This is my challenge these days, but that's that. But we're being challenged all the time towards these things, as a church, as individuals, as I would say even as people of West Kelowna. We're constantly being challenged by this, and I think even as we head towards Christmas, I think it's the same kind of idea. And yet, if our faith is a daily living, this should be a 365 day a year sense of living, that I'm just as generous September 1st as I am December 1st, as I am January 1st, all these things. So we thought we would kind of come in, hang out in the kitchen and film in here, because this Sunday, the 24th, we're going to have that sense of generosity and togetherness and sharing with others. There is a soup being held after church, and so we invite you not only to just stay and hang out and just enjoy, but there's some people who have provided soups, and so we're thankful to them and others who are serving as well. And
as I understand, you're still looking for people who are generous with their dishwashing towels. Is that right?
There's a couple open spots.
There's a few ways that we can get involved. Yeah.
As of recording this, maybe not, you know, by Thursday, but hopefully we'll have a lot of that filled. But if you're able to help in any way, you don't have to be on the official list, but you know, we would appreciate that sense of helping each other. And so, but if you're not able, come and sit and hang out and have a bowl of soup and get to know somebody. This is something that we've been trying to encourage all throughout the year, to build community. And so thanks for being a part of that in advance. Thank you for staying and just hanging out and giving us your time, and to give that time to others. So that's why we thought we'd be in the kitchen, because this is a place that's going to be used quite a bit, not only in this coming week, but in the next month for sure, because throughout the Christmas season we have a lot going on as well too. What's the next thing coming up?
Sorry, I'm just in my head doing the math. This kitchen's about to turn 5, right?
Oh yeah,
Christmas 2019.
2019, yeah.
So it's only 5 years old. It's a youngin.
It's doing pretty good.
It's looking great. I can't believe the youth haven't broken anything yet. Can't believe I haven't. Let's be clear. Anyways, hey, it's a great place to hang out with people as we serve together, and lots of great conversations happen at the dishwasher and at the stove and everywhere else around here. But you were asking a question about something else that's coming up, and I've forgotten your question already. Well, this Sunday also marks what I think is the last day to buy tickets for the ladies' banquet, which is on the 29th, which is less than a week after. So if you have been waiting till the last possible minute, we're at the last possible minute. So encourage you to, as you're listening to this right now, even connect with the office. Don't wait till Sunday, and if you don't have to, connect with the office, get a ticket, call your friend who you've been meaning to invite, bring them along, and it's going to be a great night on the 29th. And then a week after that, we have Light Up.
Yeah.
I say we, like it's not like,
oh no,
it's not all the Lakeview. But we have
we're West Kelownites.
We are West Kelownites. It is our town's Light Up, and also we have a double stall for our booth, because I'm like, our booth takes up space. They're like, fine, you can have 2 stalls. I'm like, yes. It is gonna be a good night down on Brown Road on the 6th, the first Friday of December. The event is from 5 until 7. Okay, so the poster says 7:30, but as I understand, they're kind of designing fireworks for about 8 o'clock to be highly visible from our Brown Road location. So you can stay and hang out until the fireworks are done and see them from there if you want. But 5 o'clock is when the event starts. We are looking for a few more people to help. It's more just interact with the community. That's really the job. There's a craft that we do with them, making an ornament, but really it's being that friendly face, that just that presence that wishes people a Merry Christmas, helps them, says, hey, here's a couple stencil options that you can design your ornament with, and then just being with people, being that really warm, friendly. On a cold night, be a warm, friendly presence on a cold night. That's kind of what we're looking for people to do. And if you're able to help with that, we'd love to spend the evening with you in our booth. And the more people we put in it, the warmer it will be.
Well, much better.
But it's always a good night. And so that's December 6th, and it's coming up real quick.
And then the week after that, there is a group that's coming and using our whole sanctuary and part of the rest of the building. And so there's a couple things going on, but there's a big event here that's it's a toy drive essentially, and so it's called Gifts of Hope. And so there are gifts given to those in need, and so they're looking for volunteers.
Yeah.
And so if you can be a part of that, that would be fantastic.
One other community event to make you aware of that isn't a Lakeview thing, but I just, I noticed the poster for it today. On November 30th at the Warriors game is the annual food drive for them. And so if you're going to the Warriors game that night, you probably already know about it, but if you feel like going and being part of that community event too, that's also there. Because on the December whatever, the Warriors will be here packing food hampers. And that's another way. Just as a church, we open the doors, we say, here's a room you can use. But we just kind of basically create a warm place where they can come and work and share some, just share with members of the community who are in need. So one way we can really participate in that is support, if you want to support the food drive, is go to the Warriors game on the 30th and give to it there.
Yeah. And take in a hockey game.
It's kind of a win-win for you.
They're doing well.
You get the privilege of being generous with the fun of cheering on the West Kelowna Warriors. So that sounds like win-win.
Yep. Win-win-win all around. So we wish you an early Merry Christmas. We're not there yet, but within the week we will be at the Women's Christmas. So
is that why you're wearing red today?
No.
Of course not. It's not why I'm wearing red either underneath.
It could be. It could be. And so we wish you a Merry Christmas as we head into this coming season, and blessings on you. Have a wonderful week.